Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Today, Dr. Jennifer Nash will show us how to connect people and performance. Dr. Nash, welcome to the show.
Hi, Bill. Thank you so much for having me today.
Now, you've written a very interesting book, Be Human, Lead Human. First of all, can you tell us, who is this book for?
So this book at a meta level is for anyone who wants to live their best life. And by that, I mean they want to have fulfilling relationships, they want to have effective communication, and they're able to achieve the goals that they want to have in life.
Sounds like something we all want.
I believe so.
You picked the right audience then. That's perfect. And can you explain the title, Be Human? I mean, aren't we human? Aren't we leading human? Or am I missing something?
You know, I titled the book Be Human, Lead Human because often what I find in organizations is that sort of expected to leave that human element outside the door when we walk in, as if we were two separate people. And so by bringing our whole selves in, you know, this title acknowledges that we are all human to begin with, and then we lead secondly. So helping us remember that being a human being, a whole human being at work is just as important as the work output that we're delivering at work.
Now, you had a scary statistic in the book, and you and I talked about it before the show. I want to see if I took this down correctly. In the current marketplace, only 12%, that's pretty low, 12% say that their manager is someone they want to work for. Did I get that correct? Did I copy the right words down? Because it almost seems skewed to the extreme.
It seems like a pretty extreme statistic, but that is accurate. That is, it's an unbelievable fact. But we are in a situation where most employees are disengaged and looking to find more fulfillment and meaning and purpose in their work.
When they're disengaged, to the rest of us, that's one of those nice words that professors use and authors like yourself and people with doctor before their name like you. But what in our language does that mean?
Yeah. So what does disengaged actually mean? Well, it means that maybe you don't want to go into work that day, and so you just call in sick, or even you don't even call in, you just don't show up. It can also mean when you're at work, instead of working, you are surfing the internet, right?
People do that? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
terrible.
I know. Imagine that. So disengage can also mean that you don't believe in the mission or the purpose of the organization, and you don't want to follow the leader and do the work that you've been asked to do. So there's many different dimensions of disengagement and what that could mean for a person in the workplace.
Now, that seems like a tough hill for managers and leaders to seriously climb when we only have 12% of the people there saying, we want to work for you. I mean, I think I'm a nice person. I'm talking to you. You're a nice person. I would think more than 12% would want to hang out and work with us and see what kind of direction they give. So there's a big mountain that we're trying to, or actually you're trying to overcome. Talking about a human leadership, could you give us the essence? What makes that difference? Are they more sympathetic, empathetic? What makes that human leader different?
You know, there's a set of characteristics that make leaders more effective. And I would say that many of those characteristics are what create what I call human leadership. So, for example, if someone believes that it's the people in the organization that create the value, right? They have that mindset that the people are actually creating value as opposed to the product or the service. That would tend to place them on like the human leadership side of the spectrum or the human leadership paradigm. What I often like to ask people is think about yourself as a leader or, you know, managing people in an organization. What are you actually leading or managing? Are you actually leading or managing the people that are right in front of you? Or are you actually managing or leading profitability or process or productivity, right? Or procedure? And when people take a step back and really start to think about what it is that they are actually managing or leading, they realize that they are managing and leading to those tasks and projects. They're not necessarily managing or leading the person in front of them. And so Human leadership is an invitation to managers and leaders of people to rethink how they are showing up and leading people especially in this age of AI, as technology continues to change faster and faster and faster.
That's a great point, the way you made it, because now I can argue with you and we can have a real good debate. If someone's in a nice management position, and of course they want the people below them to do the job and to like them and to be engaged, except that the boss over them says, we got to get that stock price up, and profits weren't good last trimester, semester, last week, whatever it might be. We need more sales. We need more of this, more of that. That's a real balancing act. Now they're on the high wire. And they're going between their manager who's saying, and of course that's quantifiable. It's easy. We can look at a number. Can't hide it. It's like a batting average or a shooting average for a basketball player. It's kind of making things tough, isn't it?
Yeah. So, you have that tension, right? And you're always going to have that tension between, what the stock price is and what the requirements are for the organization to survive, right? We've got to make a profit. We've got to make money. We've got to sell product. And on the other end, you've got this other set of factors that lead into how we do that. And so I argue that the way that you do that, the how of how you do that, is what makes all the difference, right? You as a leader can tell your people, look, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is when we're going to do it. And this is where you're going to do it, because I don't want you to work at home anymore. You have to come into the office. Another leader can say, you know what? You guys worked from home during COVID. You are actually more productive working from home than you are in the office. So I trust you. I trust that you're going to get the work done. You can work from wherever you want. Look, here are the goals that we need to achieve. Here is your role in achieving those goals. This is the part that you're responsible for. This is your puzzle piece. What about that, is interesting to you? What about that are you passionate about? How can I align this work that we have to do with your skills and talents so that I can deliver what I need to my bosses, but also at the same time allow you to do your best work and use your strengths, right? There are a lot of leaders who don't take the time to try to match the skills and the tasks with what the person's strengths are. And I would argue that when you are using the motivational drivers for someone about why they're working and what's important to them about that work, you are going to get optimal performance out of them every time, as opposed to using a carrot and stick approach, which is what most organizations do today.
That was so good, and it was kind of a line right in there, but if I had a marker, I would be using that heavy yellow marker to highlight it. If you look for the skills, I think you said, that people have that they really like and enjoy doing. I may not have used the same word you used, but if there's something I like dealing with people. I like talking to them. If you give me research work all day, I'm going to be slow. I'm going to doze off at some point, and I'm not going to be energized. But if I'm dealing with people or helping them solve a problem or doing something one-on-one, you'll get the best out of me, and more than most will. And I think that's what, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And so human leadership is really founded on understanding the people that you are working with, understanding what motivates them, understanding what drives them, and then aligning the work that you have with their skills and talents so they can shine, you shine, and the organization succeeds.
I think, if I remember, I used to interview some people for a job, and I think one time I said, what job, if we had you doing it in the company, design a job is what I used to ask them. The design that would be perfect for you. So I would try to find out, did they want to be a people person all day? Did they rather work with paper, pad, pens, but keep away from the people? And if they really didn't like it, they were probably going to get themselves into trouble with, dealing one-on-one with customers or people. And they knew themselves best. And it's kind of a good start to find out if they would be a fit for the position, because of course, I knew what the position entailed, and they were telling me right up front, either yes, that's good for me, or nope, that's not the person I am. Neither one of us are going to be happy, and we saved some problems. Before we go further, Dr. Nash, I'd like to let our audience know, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Our guest today is Dr. Jennifer Nash. She's the author of Be Human, Lead Human. And Dr. Nash, would you tell us the website where we can learn more information?
Certainly. So my website is drjennifernash.com. It's drjennifernash.com.
As I recall, when I started reading your book, you begin with an anecdote. and you kind of went against what people told you to do. I think it had a paper plate involved or something. So would you tell us that story?
Certainly. So, I've never really been one for the rules, and I don't agree with rules that don't make sense to me. So the story is around this paper plate, and I was working for a large automotive company, and we had a new CEO come into the role. And at the time, the economy was pretty depressed. Things were pretty tough. And so the department I was in decided they wanted to have an appreciation event. And so they bought, some markers and some stickers and, some paper plates. And they invited everybody to come down to the main hallway and fill out a paper plate for someone and tell them what you appreciated about them, and then go find them and give it to them. I said, okay, great. So I went down there and I'm thinking, who am I going to give this plate to? So I thought for a little bit, and then I decided I wanted to give it to the new CEO because he was doing a tough job. He was trying to keep the company afloat. And, it's pretty lonely at the top, especially when you're trying to do something like that. And so I wrote out my plate to him, and I, sealed it up in an envelope and, dropped it off in interoffice mail. And I really, didn't think about it after that, until I got called down to like my boss's office. And I walk into the office. In the middle of the table, I see this, this interoffice mailing envelope. I instantly know like what's in this envelope, right? It's my plate. I know this. And so the people around the table, they're telling me, we can't get this to the CEO. And I'm like, well, why not? I don't understand that. Is interoffice mail not working? Did we have to let the person go who was running mail because, the company was in dire straits? They said, no, interoffice mail is still working, but we really, it's basically not. It's not okay for us to send this to him. And so I was pretty upset about that because, I had marked it confidential. I had, sealed it all up, and, it was opened on the table. So clearly they had opened it, and it didn't really sit well with me. And so, I said, well, I'm not really sure I understand why you can't get it to him, but, I will take it, with me and leave your office. And so I did. And so I walked right past my office. I walked out the doors. I jumped into my car and I drove over to World Headquarters. And I went up to the 12th floor, and the CEO wasn't in. And so I asked his assistant if she would please give him this envelope when he got back. And she said, sure. And so I didn't think twice about it again. So I, left World Headquarters, and I went back to my office and, finished out the day. And, a couple weeks later, I come into the office and I have this voicemail message on my machine. And it is the CEO telling me how much he appreciated my appreciation plate to him, and that it brought a tear to his eye. And I have that recording actually on my website if people want to listen to it. And so, he just, and with that, there was this package that had like some swag in it from the company. And in that package was a handwritten letter thanking me for what I did for the company. And it had a heart around my name. And, Bill, I had been working for 16 years at that point in my career. And it was the first time in my career where I had felt like I mattered to an organization, and I mattered to a leader, and I mattered, as a human being, not just as a worker or an employee who could deliver output to that organization. And so that was actually the catalyst for me, not only to write this book, but it was also the catalyst for me to pursue ultimately a PhD and figure out why we don't have more leaders who are like that, who feel like they matter.
I admire your courage, because I heard you say your boss's boss's boss. So there's 3 boss levels above you who said to you, take it back and forget about this, and we don't want it. And you mentioned it was a number of years ago, so it was early in your career. And this could have been, I guess, a career killer, that if someone says, or if you got the boss, the CEO on a bad day who said, why is this person sending me this? Why are you wasting my time with a paper plate that's sent? Luckily, that the CEO was a really good person and great leader, and obviously inspired you, because now the story is going for over 15 years, and it energized you to do the work. Was your stomach falling out most of those days?
Oh my gosh. Well, at the time, like it was 2009. So like the economy was in free fall, right? Housing prices were depressed. There were lots of things happening that were just really undesirable. And I really thought when I got called down to that, that boss's office, that I was being let go. I thought I was going to lose my job that day. So, and I mean, people were coming into work with boxes, under their desks because they didn't know when they were going to be let go. I mean, it was a really, really tough time. And I was worried, the whole time. And so I didn't know how that was going to be received. But I decided to take that chance because to me, it was worth it that this person understand that what they were doing was recognized and seen and acknowledged, and that it was important because without that, the company would have not survived.
I'm laughing because I'm looking at you and you seem like such a nice, regular person. You don't have tattoos on your head. You don't have a sign that says, watch out, I'm trouble, or here comes trouble. And yet you walked right out of that meeting and went in the opposite direction after the direction they gave you. So that took a lot of courage. And of course, it was probably as you use it in the book, the starting point of your career. It's the beginning of your book and really brings out the major portions of your book that, you're telling us.
It really is, and like we talked about, before I started telling the story, I'm not really one who deals with rules really well.
I see that.
Especially when the rules don't make sense. If there was some unwritten cultural rule that I didn't understand that you can't send a plate that it has stickers on it to the CEO, well, then that should have been made clear when they gave us the event instructions, but they didn't. And so I figured it was fair game.
As you said, you're a rebel. Now, we're obviously going through a difficult time now in many respects. Not only do we have the usual management leadership problems, now we have that new element that's come into place. I want to work from home. I don't want you to work from home. Well, can I do it 2 days a week and a half day on Saturday, etc.? Mm-hmm. Has that just made your work more difficult, or the manager's work, just add another layer of problems on there?
There's a couple dimensions to that. So let's talk first about what this really is, right? There's a couple things driving this. I think first and foremost, there's an issue of trust. Even though employees showed that they worked during the pandemic from home and they had higher levels of productivity than they did in the office prior to the pandemic, there is still some level of trust that isn't there between managers and employees or leaders and employees. That is a whole separate issue. The second issue that we have going on here, companies have invested a lot of money into real estate that is now sitting empty. Right? So they're not getting any return on that investment. And they have all these spaces that now they need to figure out what they're going to do with. So that is a separate issue all by itself.
That is a little embarrassing. I mean, I'm serious, not making a joke, but just the fact that you've got this giant building or facility or plant or whatever. And even as an outsider pass it, I see open parking spaces. I know they're still functioning, but I'm guessing many of the workers are either doing work from home or they've withdrawn a little bit in their numbers, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm sorry for interrupting.
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's fine. You're right. And so, the third piece of this puzzle is really when we unpack it, leaders and managers of people lack the people skills in their toolkits, right? They lack the skills that they need to lead people effectively. And when the pandemic hit, that was never more clear than at that moment, where all of a sudden, what people were used to doing, right? Management by walking around or whatever it was that what they used, they couldn't do that anymore. They had to figure out, how do I lead these people or manage these people remotely? And a lot of them didn't figure that out during the pandemic. And now they're trying to figure out, well, how do I do that now? Hybrid, right? How do I manage people? How do I get them to come into the office, first of all, when they've seen that they don't really have to be there? And second of all, if I do get them to come in, how do I adjust my technique so that it's appropriate when they're in the office and I do what they need when they're out of the office? So I think there's a skills deficit here that we're also talking about. So when we bring up this idea of, return to office and work from home and all these kinds of things that's causing all this consternation today, there are a lot of different factors going into that. I will say, it is important to have collaboration. It is important to see people in person. It is important to build those relationships. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but I do think you should find what is right for the individual as well as what is right for the organization.
Jennifer, before we go any further, I'd like to let our audience know once again that if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Our guest today is Dr. Jennifer Nash, Nash. She's the author of Be Human, Lead Human. And Dr. Nash, would you tell us, is there a website where we can find more information?
Certainly. So my website is www.drdrjennifernash.com.
And excuse me, if someone is saying, oh my gosh, they're describing me, or this is my workplace, or I see that I'm fitting into this problem, and maybe I'm more the problem, the solution, or at least I would be heading this way, what would you tell them? Is it just read the book? Is there some questions they should ask themselves before reading it to see if this is starting with them, or if they're part of the problem or the solution?
Yeah. So, I would invite them to take a look at my website where I have a free assessment that they can take to just check in and see where they are on the human leader spectrum, right? It will ask them a whole bunch of questions, and then it will give them a nice report that gives them some recommendations for, what they're doing well, what they could improve, and, a starting point for a roadmap on how to, go on that journey of evolution.
Do most leaders, when you work with them, have a good perception of the way they're looked at? Or are they, oh, you're shaking your head. Our audience can't see that, but that head is moving quickly and with vigor. So I think we're in trouble. Maybe I asked the wrong question here. Do you want to explain that?
Sure. No, I think it's a great question, actually. And we tend to perceive ourselves in a very different way than others perceive us. And we tend to overinflate what we think we do well and underestimate what we don't do well. And so one of the things I always encourage my clients to do is to have some kind of 360. And so, we talked just a moment ago about the assessment that's on my website. What I would invite your listeners to do is to take that assessment and then invite someone else in their life to take the assessment and answer the questions based on their perception of them. And then they can compare the responses and see where they fall.
I'm afraid. I would be, honestly, I know, and we should do it as professionals if we were in a management role or a leadership role, but all of a sudden I'm sweating very much here, and I'm glad the air conditioning is going, because I think we're going to get a different answer, and the way you're laughing, I think I'm right.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting, right? Because the way we see ourselves, we think that everything is pretty rosy, and oftentimes, it's a mix. And so getting that feedback of, how we're perceived, there's so much value in that. And that is such a beautiful place to start those conversations and to have that dialogue around, well, what are you seeing? Well, this is what I'm seeing. Well, what were the behaviors you saw that caused you to have that perception? And the other person will say, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that. Wow, now that I'm aware of that, now I have a choice to make, right? And I can choose to change those behaviors, or I can choose to continue them.
And I think it takes a little courage to do that, because we're going to find out things about ourselves that we might not like. Maybe we come in later because we're a big shot, or we leave early, or we take long lunch hours, and that reflects on us. The workers see that, or our direct reports see that and say, wait, if you can do it, why can't I do it, et cetera, et cetera. But it's going to make us better. And I think at least it shows the staff that we care enough to find out their opinion. So that would impress me if someone did that. But they have to live up to it then. They have to actually try to make some changes, et cetera.
Right.
What are some of the common misconceptions about being human, leading human? Do we have a wrong view, or do we see that as just being soft and easy?
I think so often people tend to view someone when they're kind as it's a weakness, and that leaders have to be strong and project this, tough kind of persona to be effective. And I would say that there is nothing further from the truth. You can be kind and very effective. So when we think about leader today and the role of a leader is actually evolving to become a coach and a facilitator, rather than, this command and control style that is really outdated and doesn't work so well anymore in the workplace today.
I'm just taking this down because I love that description, coach and facilitator. It's no longer you do this or you're fired or you're going to be penalized or written up or something, I guess, if I'm understanding you correctly. But let's do it together, much like a sports coach or someone we see in the college ranks, trying to, we win or we lose together, and we're all in this boat. So Now, when you start this at a company, I always try to learn from someone else's mistakes. Let them fall in the water first, and then I avoid that. So can you tell me some of the mistakes commonly made and that both myself and our audience are likely to fall into, and maybe you can help us avoid at least going down those incorrect roads?
Yes. So first and foremost, the culture of the organization needs to be one that is open to learning and open to growth and evolution. If you are in an organization that is very stuck in its ways, that resists change, that thinks that the way we've done things around here is just fine and status quo is okay, this probably isn't going to work so well for your organization. Another mistake that I see organizations commonly making is that when it comes to performance, most team members are working in teams, but the team member themselves are evaluated individually. So you have a difference in how the work is produced and created versus who is being evaluated on that work. So when you deliver work in a team, but you evaluate individually, that is also an issue that comes into play here.
Oh, that's so interesting because I guess like a sports team, again, you had to use the analogy. If someone doesn't do their job, you may look like you got blamed, but you're trying to cover up for them, meaning block the shot or hit the home run because someone else didn't score enough runs. And yet you're doing your job, but you're taking the blame for someone else's errors or gaps or not showing up for work for a particular day.
Exactly. If you create that gap on the defensive line and the quarterback is open and they get sacked, at the end of the day, like it's your fault.
No, exactly. And I think that's something most of us are going to see a lot. And unfortunately, and then, of course, it actually causes more of a problem because it angers us because now I'm taking the blame for Sally or Sam for something they might have done or not done. And because I'm on their team, we're the one down the list or whatever. You've certainly given us a lot to think of. I want to remind our audience again, the book is Be Human, Lead Human. It's by our guest, Dr. Jennifer Nash, Nash. And one more time, Jennifer, would you give us that website?
Sure. It's www.drjennifernash.com, and that's drjennifernash.com.
Thank you so much for alerting us this today. I hope we're making a lot of companies better, and you may have scared us a little bit with that 12% number, but at least you're helping us get it back and helping all managers and leaders do the right thing. I'd like to let our audience know that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.